Yes,
Good.
ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. So today I'll discuss again classes and objects because please listen carefully because many students were not available in the previous class. So I'll take so in this class we'll see about the concepts of classes and objects in object-oriented programming. Okay, and how can we use these classes and objects for programming in C++. So already you have seen about that is object-oriented programming without classes and objects. So you're all experts in writing programs using main function, right? So now we'll see how this classes and objects helps in defining the object-oriented programming concepts in C++. So basically, there are two types of programming paradigms. Paradigms means programming style. Okay. So one is procedure-oriented programming, and the other one is object-oriented programming. C++ supports both procedure-oriented and object-oriented. So, but actually C++ is a object-oriented programming language. So what is procedure-oriented programming? Can anyone tell me what is procedure-oriented programming? What do you mean by procedure oriented programming? So it's nothing but it go by procedure. Okay, so you can see an organized structure. So I've learned in C programming language how that organized structure is helping in framing the procedures. Okay, so it is a step-by-step approach. So for example, if you write a program in a C language, so you will just execute the first step and then you will get to the next step and then you will execute this next step and then you will move on to the third step, execute it and close it. So in this way, you'll go by step, right? So example C, Fortran, Pascal, all these things. Here data is not secure, okay? So in procedure-oriented programming, actually the data is not secure, you all know, right? So but in the case of object-oriented programming, so we can, what we do means, here we just bind the data and the functions into a entity called class. Okay, so we'll group in a class. So the best examples are C++, Java, Python, all those things. So here data is more secured also. When you compare with the object-oriented programming, here data is more secure. So those who have attended the previous class, you may be knowing about classes and objects. Those who are new, please listen. So we have to remember some of the terms. So what is object-oriented programming? It includes classes and objects. This class, it is an entity or a box. Okay, so this class is an entity or a box. So which comprises of, so this class comprises of actually, so this class actually comprises of, that is functions, also one entity as well as objects as well as functions. It has variables as well as functions. So we create object in the main function. Okay, we create object here and using this object we will access this class, right? So we all know that what are the advantages of OOPS programming. So it is we can reuse the variables, we can reuse the function. So after some time we can write it in a class, and after some time if you want to reuse it, we can take it back and we can modify it in the program. So all these things can be done. So in this class, I'm just going to connect this encapsulation concept as well as data hiding concept with this. Okay, what is encapsulation? What is encapsulation? So encapsulation is nothing but the binding the data and the functions, okay, into single unit. That is called as encapsulation. So actually, when we just bind the data, what happens means, so we know that the data and the functions are in one place, in one common place. It cannot be shared. So here also in the case of C++ object-oriented programming style also, what we used to do means we just group the data as well as the methods or the functions into a class. Okay, we put everything inside a class. And what data hiding? For data hiding, already we learned about access specifiers. So here we will use the access specifiers. There are three important access specifiers, that is private, protected, and public. We'll use the three access specifiers. So using this access specifiers, we can either open the data or close the data. We can either open the function or close the function. Okay, so we all know about the three access specifiers. So in this today's class, we will discuss only about private and protected. Sorry, private and public. Okay, so what is this private data type, private access specifier? You all know that it is private. Okay, so it will not share anything. So even it won't share if you just have some private data variables as well as private functions inside a class, it even won't share it to the main function. Okay, it won't share to other class, it won't share to its main function. I'll show with an example program. Okay, public means it will share everything to all, right? Public attribute. But protected means it will share to its derived class, but it will not share to the main function. Okay, so that is the thing. So private means it will share with its own class, not to any other class, even to its main function. Public means it will share to everyone, and protected means it will share to its class and its derived class and not to the other classes, and not even the main function have access on it. So what is a class? Class is a user-defined data type. Okay. So already we learned about the data types. What are the two important data types you know? Can you let me know? What are the two important data types? Basic data type or primitive data type? Or the primitive data type means what are the data types? Integer, character, float, double. All these things are primitive data types. You have another set of data type called derived data types. Do you remember? So when I was teaching data types, I taught you about pointers. Then what are the other data types? References, arrays. All these things comes under a non-primitive data types or that is derived data types. So in addition to this, you can customize your data type. The user can customize the data type. Okay, that type of data type is called as user-defined data type. This class and structures are examples of user-defined data type. So we all know that what is a class? Class is a template or a blueprint of the object which does not occupy any memory. When you create a class, it will not occupy any memory in the computer. Okay, so what it's then it is for what use we are creating? We are just creating it as a template. Okay, this is a class. It is holding the object. It is holding the data variables or the data types or the variables, and it is also holding the member function. Since it is holding both, it has the property of encapsulation. It is also hiding the data from other class and also to the main function using what? Using its access specifiers, private, public, and protected. Okay, so a class is nothing but it's a blueprint of an object or a template that what we have created for access. Okay, and when you want to access the class, when you want to use the class as a memory, when you want to reserve some space, or when you want to use the class at an instant of time, we call it as an object. We create object using these classes. So object is an instance of a class. When a class is defined, no memory is allocated, but when an object is instantiated or created, memory is allocated. So this is the syntax for creating the object. Object is created in the main function, and this is the syntax. It follows like this: class name followed by object name. And this is the syntax for creating class in C++. Okay, it's very important. So it comes with a class keyword. That's a lowercase. Okay, ensure that it's a lowercase. It is followed by the class name. So always just ensure that your class name, your first letter must be caps, and all other names you can go with the lowercase. So you can follow some standards. Okay, so then the class is opening. As I said, class encapsulates data. Okay, so data variables, and it also encapsulates functions. That means it combines, it encloses, it encompasses either that is data types, data variables as well as member functions. And we all know that the keywords, access specifiers, we can use either private, public, or protected in this data variables. So if you use private, the data variables and member function means it is private to only to the same class. For example, here class name is the class, means this data are private only to the class name. It's not open to other classes. It's not open to the main function even. Okay. So if we open it as public, for example, I'm using this as public. So this function void method name can be used by all the classes, can be used by the main function. Okay, everything, right? So all the class must be terminated by a semicolon. Next. So this is the syntax for creating object. Class name followed by object name semicolon, and this is done in the main function. Okay. So now let me show one example. So to how to use the classes and objects. Okay. So in online compiler, I'll show you one example how to declare a class and how to use it. Fine. So just open the compiler and I'll share it. One second. Yes. So can you able to see the compiler?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll show you how to write a class, okay, and how to create objects for the class and how to access the class, okay. So I'm just writing using namespace std. So just we are first before the main function, okay. I think it's visible. So before the main function, I'm writing a class. So class is nothing but it has a keyword, class keyword. Okay, then you can write the class name. So I'm just writing triply. Okay, class name. So now I'm opening the class. So in the class, we all know that class encloses data variables and member functions. So I'm just writing two data variables, and it also I'm just writing one function, int add function. So this program is to add two numbers, okay, int a comma int b, right? Return a plus b. So since I have used the return type, I have just added. So this class, so just to see that, just to know that it's a class, I'm terminating it by a semicolon as per the syntax. So this class is having how many data variables? It is having two data variables, A and B. And this class is having one function. Okay. So I have not protected this using the access specifiers. If you don't protect it also, what happens means this data members will be by default, it will take private access. Okay. And the member functions will take public access. So this is default case. You can also give it. So by default, all the data members are private. Okay. Note the point, very important. By default, all the data members are private. I'll show that also. and all the member functions are public. So here I have written two data variables, A and B, and one function, that is the add function. Okay, so and in the main function, what I'm doing means I'm just calling I'm creating the object. How to create the object? It is nothing but class name followed by object name. One object I am creating, obj. Using this object, I can access the variables as well as access the function. But it is basically solely based on the that is access specifier. Okay, so first I'll show you how I am accessing the function. So there is an add function. So I am calling the add function. I want to add these two numbers. Okay, I want to add these two numbers. So I'm just calling the add function. So the compiler, what happens means, see, I have created an object. Using the object, using this dot operator, I'm calling the function. So I have already written this add function here, right? So and this add function is having two arguments. Whenever you call the function, you ensure that it should match with the argument list. If I'm just using 34 means actually I'll get error. It won't call the function. There is no function. Okay, there is no function add of no matching function. It's giving no matching function. Okay, so since there are two arguments, I'm just calling using two arguments. So now if I just call this, actually I won't get any output, but there is no error because I have not written any cout statement in the function. So if you want to display the output, here I am writing the cout, because in the function there is no cout. It's directly using the return keyword to return. It will add A and B and it will return the values of A and B. Okay, so I'm just calling. So when if I just run this, I'll get the output as 100. So it's adding 34 and 66, and I'm just getting the value as 100. Okay, so here what I have done means I've written a class. So inside the class I have taken two data variables. So here you see how it just compare with the C program or the C++ what we wrote with the main function. So there we write everything in the main function, right? So we do not care about the private or the access specifiers. We do not care about public access specifier. We just write as a whole, okay? So but what we are doing means we are taking one box or taking one entity just to declare the data variables as well as the function. So it's just a template. It's not occupying any memory. Once you create this object, I'm creating this object. So I'm calling this function using this object. So when this is done, this memory will be occupied. Okay, and one object. What is an object? It's an instance of a class. So for that instance, that object will work as a class. Okay, so A and B, it will create, and it will also create the add function. And when I call the add function, will go directly here and it will add the two values and it will return the value. Okay, so similarly I can create more number of objects. Okay, obj, obj1. So when the object increases, I can go with arrays. Okay, so here I can see.
Ma'am, can't hear, ma'am.
You can't hear. So now is it visible? Sorry, is it audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Right. So any doubts you have in this programming? Basic program? Okay, so if we just add two numbers, okay, so if I just call this, I'm using the second object, obj1, I'm calling the same function. So this is also possible. So 2 times you are getting 100, okay, so if you just get endl in this, you will get the values one after the other, okay. So this is a class. So this class is holding the private data variables as well as the public member functions, and I'm creating the object, two objects I have created here in the main function. Using the two objects, I have called the same function. So anything is possible. You can create any number of objects. You can call the function n number of times using the same object. See, this is also possible. You can call using the same object. You can call the function n number of times with the different numbers. So I'll get different outputs. Okay. and you can create a number of objects also. So this is how a class and object work. Now if you take the access specifier, okay, so here the function is public. If I mention this function to be private, I'll get error. Okay, when I call the function, I'll get error. See, that function, I can't call the function because it is made private. So only within this class, I can use the function. See, this A and B is private. So now I am changing this. So this A and B are private. Okay, take this A and B to be private. So this A and B can be used within the class. In the function, I am using this A and B. But this A and B cannot be used by the main function. If I use the A and B in the main function, I'll get error. Okay. So similarly, this variables. See, I can also call like this. If I want to access the variables, I can call like this. Cout obj dot a. Okay, obj dot a. What will I get? Can anyone tell me the answer for this? This A is private. It's protected. It cannot be accessed by the main function. So what I'll get? Tell me more, what output I'll get here? What output I'll get? What output I'll get? If I just run this program, what output I'll get? I'm getting error.
Error only.
Okay, so not C out. Right?
C out.
Not for this, but this A is private. See, A and B are private. So I'll get error here. Okay, so if I make this as public, then you'll get the value for A and B. Okay, since there is no AB value mentioned here, it will give the value as 0. Okay, right. So is the concept of classes and objects clear to all? Is the concept of classes and objects clear to all? So I hope it is clear. So in this, how to create the objects and classes, and how to access the functions and variables, and how the access specifiers are playing important role in this. Okay, so now you all have to take a quiz in this. So please